We live in a very different world than our parents did. Modern technology has changed everything. The rising generation is the first that has known nothing other than being flooded by the sights and sounds of overwhelming quantities of media messages 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Immersed in bright flashing video screens and blaring sound, young people today are exposed with the equivalent of 8.5 hours of media content. This is more time than an adult would normally spend at a full-time job. Society today has become more and more dependent on communication technology. Let's consider some questions about the media. True or false? The media in America is an important public service. This sounds like it should be true, but it is false. The multimedia giants are in business to make hundreds of billions of dollars in profit. They do this by captivating audiences through sensational entertainment, violence, sex appeal, and alarming news, and then selling time to advertisers. It's not a public service. It's big business. True or false? Every community has its own independent news outlets to cover current events that are important for people to know about. This sounds like it should be true, but it's false. Since the Telecommunications Act of 1996, the trend has been to consolidate smaller local media companies into larger ones. Very few sources of influence exist today. There are only about 8 major media conglomerates that control all of the information in the media. The messages sent by the news media are in the interest of the news media, not the public. True or false? The information presented to the public through the mass media must be verified to be true and accurate before it can be aired. This also sounds like it should be true, but it's false. In most cases, the only people who verify what is being presented by messages in the media are the consumers themselves. The government regulatory body charged with the oversight of the media, the FCC, by all accounts does not monitor the accuracy of information presented. In our democratic system of government, there is no government ministry of truth to verify the content of media messages. That means that we simply have to do it ourselves. The mass media is very good at what they do. They make hundreds of billions of dollars by presenting the public with a continual stream of sensational and increasingly creative messages to gain and hold our attention, so that they can then sell time to advertisers who can submit their carefully contrived messages to the captive audiences. Advertisers program an uneasy self-consciousness into our minds so that we are on the lookout for products that will always make us look, feel, and smell better. They work very hard to convince us that we need to buy a product. Many of us accept unchallenged the meanings they present in their messages as they convince us to accept their help in solving problems that we don't really even have. Spending so much of our time today consuming media, consumers rely heavily on information provided by advertisers. Many do not realize the degree to which the same informative messages also persuade us, shape our attitudes, establish standards of behavior, and foster a consumer culture. With this in mind, it becomes much more obvious that it's very important to develop improved methods to filter and think critically about the messages being sent. While you're spending the majority of your day consuming media, it's important to remember that the messages you are hearing are being sent with an objective. Their goals are not your goals. It's very important that you think critically about the messages you receive. This is called becoming media literate. Media literacy is developing the ability to view media messages differently by making a distinction in your own minds between your own goals and the goals of the creator of the media message. They are usually not the same. So how do you go about becoming more media literate? and thinking critically about media messages. Here's some handy questions you should remember to ask yourself when viewing or listening to media. Number 1, who created this message? Number 2, why is this message being sent? Number 3, how did this message get my attention? Number 4, how might someone else interpret this message? And number 5, what values, lifestyles, and points of view are represented, and which ones are not? In a media-saturated world, if we think critically about messages we receive, we are more aware and more likely to make better decisions. The next time you hear a biased media message sent by a motivated sales force trying to convince you to change your life to meet their needs, don't buy it. Become media literate.